Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics from the most beautiful government building I've ever seen, St. Louis City Hall, and we are joined by Mayor Tishaura Jones. Madam Mayor, thank you for the hospitality.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for coming to City Hall.
I love it. It's such a beautiful building.
It is.
Ron Richards, you said if you built a building like the state capitol, you'd be kicked out of office before you could serve in it. This building, every angle of it is just such a beautiful place.
It is, built back in 1904.
They did it right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about money. Right now, you have, every St. Louis mayor I've ever seen has a problem of resources. You have an opportunity between the Rams lawsuit, the federal money, around $700 million maybe, that you're going to be overspending. It's a transformational amount of money. Is there a transformational vision you have to spend that money?
Yes, absolutely. You know, St. Louis cannot succeed if half of it is left to fail. And that's been the case for the last several decades. I grew up in North St. Louis and have seen over the years how it has deteriorated. And that's not fair to the people who live there. And I continue to live in North St. Louis by choice. And so we're going to use this money in an intentional way to let people know that we are serious about investing in their futures and investing in their built environment.
When you say North St. Louis, explain where that is. Everybody comes to the ballpark, right?
Right.
Where's North St. Louis from the ballpark?
Where North St. Louis from the ballpark is anything, well, they define it as anything north of Del Mar, right? Del Mar seems to be the dividing line in St. Louis, and I live north of Del Mar as well. So you have beautiful neighborhoods in North St. Louis, Old North St. Louis, Hyde Park, the Ville, the Greater Ville. These were once thriving communities that were dedicated to Black excellence. We had Homer G. Phillips Hospital that trained thousands of Black doctors, was the first, and we also have Sumner High School, first Black high school west of the Mississippi. Wow. So, you know, our neighborhoods are rich with history, and we have to restore and rebuild those neighborhoods.
If you're Crown Candy, you're North St. Louis, right?
Yes, Crown Candy.
How can somebody that sees this money be spent, how will they be able to tell if you did a good job by this money or not?
We'll see cranes in the sky, and you won't have potholes in the streets.
It is true, though. Those are real things. I mean, when you go to any city, Poplar Bluff, there's a part of town that the buildings are not being used and the streets aren't in repair. I think that feeling does permeate the community.
It does. It does.
Let me ask you this: the Rams lawsuit. You probably had to be in the final room that decided, okay, we're going to take this settlement or we're not. How did you make that decision?
Well, I wasn't in the room. My attorneys were.
Sure.
We went back and forth a little bit. It wasn't an easy decision to make. But when we look at the opportunity that we have in front of us to be able to have several $1 million that we can spend in whatever way we want, because the ARPA money has conditions on it. I think that this is a real opportunity for us to make some investments that we will see returns for many, many years to come.
And you have the money now, or it's in St. Louis somewhere, right?
It's in St. Louis somewhere. Yeah. We're still negotiating with the county and the RSA about how to split the remaining amount after the lawyers got their contingency fee.
I hate talking about COVID, but it's something. Your dad's Twitter account's one of my favorites. When the Blues won the Stanley Cup, he said, "I didn't know there was as many Black Blues fans." Well, I didn't know there's as many virus experts, but now in any bar in Missouri, you got all kinds of virus experts. It feels like here even in the city that the cases are mitigating. Mm-hmm. But how will you know when this is over? When could you tell somebody, you know what, this pandemic is over? Not maybe it's still around. I'm not saying it ever goes, but what will you be looking for when you could say, you know what, this pandemic is now behind us?
Well, I continue to listen to the experts when it comes to COVID. And we have a wonderful expert in our health director, Dr. Tishaura Davis, who is an infectious disease specialist. And she has told us time and time again that even though the numbers are decreasing, we're not where we need to be yet. I think we're still at 10%, and she would like to see us down to 5% infection rates before we lift some of the restrictions. But also, COVID's not going to go away. It's going to go from a pandemic status to an endemic status. It'll be more like the flu, sure. And we'll have to still continue to deal with it just like we do the flu, get boosters or get a flu shot every year. I believe it'll be the same way with COVID.
I've told folks on this show, different places, I thought you and the Butler County Commissioner Vince Lampe may have handled COVID better than anybody else for what their constituents wanted. Right now, is there a mask order in the city?
Yes, the mask mandate is still in effect until March 6th.
It feels like folks here like that, approve of that. I noticed that nobody at the city council has overrode your order, but it's not like you're out writing people tickets or putting them in jail if they ain't wearing a mask, right?
No, we're not.
I mean, you go to plenty of places in St. Louis and they don't have one. It's your advice, and most people do, but it's not an oppressive thing. I think that might have been the right stroke to maybe hit with it.
Well, I mean, we have a mask mandate, and we haven't, we've enforced it where we need to. I'll just say that. When there have been just, real crazy violations, for example, in clubs during the height of the infection, then we had to, we had to act.
So it's an interesting thing. I mean, people think that it's to know how real it is. Sandy Plemons in West Butler County, neighbor of mine, right down the gravel road and around the corner. She died. So she was sick. When she died, she had COVID, and it was a contributing factor to it. I mean, it's a real thing, but it will be interesting. So 5% is where you feel like you can tell folks, you know what, we're going to move forward.
That's where the health director feels, yes.
Let's talk about crime. It seems like every time somebody mentions St. Louis, somebody that wants to be derogatory throws up crime. You actually saw the murder rate go down. Why did that? What would you look back and say, okay, we did this and we saw this number go down?
Well, it's a myriad of things, and it's not just one thing. So I want to make sure that your viewers know that it's several things. It's data-driven policing strategies. It's community organizations stepping up to the plate and doing deterrence, intervention, and prevention work.
Give me an example of what that means to just a regular person who lives on Hanley.
Right, to a regular
Hampton.
To a regular person, that means we have community organizations that are working with the people in their neighborhood to connect them to resources, because at the end of the day, the root cause of crime is poverty. And so how can we connect people to resources so they can thrive instead of just survive or try to take what someone else has? Because that's what happens in a lot of these instances. So we are working on standing up programs that connect people to the resources that they need to thrive. So we have Cure Violence, we have Project Hockey, we have the Urban League, we have victim support services in the hospitals. As soon as that crime happens, we have the Cops and Clinicians program, which pairs an officer with a licensed clinical social worker. We have a 911 diversion program that diverts 911 calls, so an officer isn't always dispatched, or also there so you can talk to someone with our partnership with Behavioral Health Response if you're having a crisis. So it's all of these things working together, and most importantly, we're trying to make sure that we give our youth positive and fun and safe activities to keep them off the street.
You told that, I asked you, came on our show at the week after you won the election, and I asked you, what do you say to that backbench House member that you know who gets told, pass this bill to tie St. Louis's hands, that we can tell them how to do it better? You said, give me a year. And that year, murders have went down. Your detractors will point out immediately, well, violent crime is not down. Explain to me how you continue this so it's a trend, not just, I mean, you only do so much in a year, but how do you stack 2-3 years on top of that?
Right, so violent crime is actually down by 23% and homicides are down by 25%. So I would say to that House member who wants to tie our hands or tell us what to do with our budget, or to move police back under state control, I would say look at the last 8 months or 10 months that I've been in office. Crime is down.
What do you need from them to continue that?
They need to come here and see it for themselves. They need to come talk to our Cure Violence interrupters. They need to talk to the Urban League and the other community organizations that are making a difference on the ground and see what they're doing to reduce crime. Because again, poverty is the father of crime. And we have to address the poverty situations in our neighborhoods that don't allow people to have living wage jobs or access to health care or all of the social determinants of health, because health and gun violence, in my opinion, are interconnected.
Let me just ask you the question, just simple hillbilly speak. If someone asks you, is St. Louis safe? How do you convince them it's safe?
I would say absolutely it's safe. There's a propensity for crime to happen anywhere, and especially with the with the proliferation of guns in our community, anybody can have a gun.
Anywhere in the world, a big city is going to have more crime than a rural area. In any country, in any civilization, that's going to be the case. But is there a part of town that would you say is safer than another place? If you had some folks coming in and they ask you, is it safe to come to St. Louis? How do you answer that?
Well, I feel safe in St. Louis, and I don't always have my officers with me when I'm in the community. I feel safe going to my cousin's house on Shreve off of Euclid. You know, I feel safe, you know, going to church on Martin Luther King. So, you know, I mean, you're only as safe as you feel. You just have to get out in the community and experience it for yourself. You
put together a very impressive team of representatives in Jeff City on your government relations. Senator May is a pretty loud advocate of some of your policies. If you don't know, just ask her. You better have some time; she'll tell you. Mm-hmm. But what is your relationship like right now with Governor Parson?
You know, the governor and I served together. When I was in the House, he was in the Senate. So I would say we have mutual respect for each other, which isn't always the case when you're a Democratic mayor leading in a red state. And because we have mutual respect for each other, we work on the things that we agree on, and we just don't worry about the things that we don't agree on. So we know that we agree on expanding workforce development opportunities. We agree on expanding pre-K, and we agree on our infrastructure in this state. So I think that if we work together on those three things, we'll see a difference in the state.
A couple other questions. Your local paper here, it seems like they like your philosophy. They just have a problem with you. What do you read? Where do you get your news here in St. Louis?
Well, I would say the editorial board. Let's qualify that statement. But I do read the local news. I watch the local news when I have an opportunity, and also read some of the national papers, the New York Times, the Washington Post, for example. You have
a tremendous asset, maybe the leading African-American newspaper in the country for sure, the St. Louis American. Mm-hmm. That is something that I think people can't understand because it's such a unique place in St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean, the St. Louis American is, you know, a nationally renowned newspaper, black newspaper, and has been critical to getting some of our messages out that sometimes we can't rely on mainstream media to publish.
Last question. All right, you've got this terrific red outfit. We're 3 blocks from the stadium. Are you going to be able to force the Cardinals to come and start playing next month?
I cannot force the Cardinals to do anything. I am hopeful that they will negotiate terms that everybody is happy with because I love baseball just like the next person.
All right, now Mayor Slay brought 2 world titles home. What are we looking at here? We talked about this transformational money. What should we expect from your reign as mayor?
Oh, you know what?
How many parades down Market Street?
I hope that the Cardinals, the Blues, and the St. Louis City soccer team also
I didn't ask about the Cardinals.
bring home a win. But one of the things I've learned as I became mayor is that we are unique in St. Louis in that we have had a title in every sport.
Oh, and 11 for the Cardinals.
Yes.
Maybe 12.
Maybe 12.
Madam Mayor, thank you so much for the hospitality. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel from right here in St. Louis City Hall after this.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Your energy needs are changing. That's why at Ameren, Missouri, we're not waiting on the future. We're building it with the Smart Energy Plan, advancing thousands of projects across the state, helping reduce emissions through cleaner energy sources, boost reliability with self-healing equipment, and better withstand storms with new composite poles. Moving Missouri forward and bringing us all a little closer together. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to Week in Missouri Politics from St. Louis City Hall. Joined by Representative LaKeySha, someone that knows this building very, very well. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Scott. Happy to be here.
Mike Butler, we know you as state representative. Now you have a big office corner suite in City Hall. Thank you for making the time and the hospitality.
Glad to be here.
Representative Mary Elizabeth Coleman, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
And Brett Dinkins, thank you for coming back on the show.
Glad to be here.
Now let's talk about the Congressional Maps. I have seen, it's always hard to get an opinion out of you, but you actually have an opinion on how the map should look. What is it?
I have a lot of opinions.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think Chris would think it's hard to get an opinion out of me. Well, I just think it's going to be hard to explain to the electorate why you wouldn't want to have more Republicans being sent from the state. Nationally, we've got 11 more Democrats that have already had safe seats created in other states. It's the play that everybody runs, and it's a little, it's a little unusual. We're not doing that here.
It took a minute. I don't think when this bill came to the House, it was necessarily everybody had chimed in yet. But you go to Lincoln Day, I didn't see any 6-2 stickers. I saw a bunch of folks mostly talking about a 7-1 map.
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't make Lincoln Days this year. My kids had a basketball tournament, but I heard there was a lot of excitement, a lot of momentum forward going into the 2022 election.
As long as you weren't seeing stickers at your kids' basketball game. LaKeySha Bosley, now I have a feeling that you probably do not agree with that. However, you're an old school soul in politics. If you were drawing if you had the pencil, you're telling me you would draw a 6-2 map for Republicans if you were drawing those lines?
I'm going to be honest. I think that I would draw a map that was fair for Missourians. Right now, trying to draw a 7-1 map is not fair for Missourians. It takes an entire group of people, their voices away, and I think that that's the important piece. And then you're talking about who are you going to carve up? You're going to carve up Kansas City, Jackson County, but you have a large growth of population of minorities there. You have a new district that was created that came out that was in the state legislature that is now a Hispanic grown district that's specifically in that sense. So now you're going to break up and make a voice of people who have not always felt like they were a part of the process. You're going to limit it? Wow, go for it.
What do you think now? You're head of the Democrat Party. Now you tell me right now, if tables were turned, you wouldn't do the same thing if you had the map.
Well, if I was a Republican legislator, I'd be asking one question: what would Jesus do? And quite frankly, Republicans are trying to kick a good Christian out of Congress. Reverend Emmanuel Cleaver
yes.
is a United Methodist reverend who's had a church for years, and they're trying to make sure he doesn't have a district anymore. I mean, we've heard Republicans talk along about how they're great Christians, and yet here's one of the best in D.C., and they're trying to make sure he doesn't go back.
That's why he's good. Now, Brett Dinkins, if he was in Illinois, I think we know what they would do. Sure. You can see, you just shoot across the river here and look. The old school politics makes you think go for it, right? But there is a little bit of on the go for it aspect, there's X number of Republicans in the state.
Sure.
X divided by 6 is a pretty good number. X divided by 7 is going to be a little less, right?
I've seen versions of this map that has Iron County, where I'm from, in with St. Louis County. I don't think the folks of Iron County want to be in with St. Louis County, no more than the folks in Polk and Cedar County want to be in with Jackson County.
Although I saw some screwball
if
version
we
that
have
had
to decimate
Jeffco.
rural Missouri representation just to carve out Kansas City and make it a 7-1, I think we need to go with a strong 6-2 that allows rural Missourians to still have a voice in Congress and stick with it.
I saw some screwball map that had Representative Coleman's house in with West Butler County. So, I mean, you could draw a 6-2 map really, really poorly if you work at it.
You sure can.
And I saw one that was drawn quite poorly.
I think we can protect the strong Republican representation we have in Congress right now while not taking away rural Missouri's voice at the table.
If they draw a 7-1, you're going to be like, well, that's a game.
Hey, I mean, take it to the courts. Let the courts
Let's do
have it.
predictions here. Does the legislature pass a map or the governor sign it?
I couldn't predict that.
What do you think?
I would hope so.
I don't know right now.
That's a no. I'm with her.
Yes.
When?
Next week.
So if they do, what will that be? Will it be 6-2, 7-1?
It'll be a strong 6-2.
So you're saying they'll start filing for office and they'll pass one?
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I already told you. I don't think that I just think right now it's hard to predict. The problem is the map that we've got right now doesn't protect the 2nd district. Nobody but Ann Wagner could keep that district. So we have got to get a stronger map than what the House sent over.
If I was in Wagner, I'd start asking for stuff then.
Well, I think she should.
Good. What do you think? If they do pass a map, I think it'll be a 6-2 map.
I mean, it should be a 6-2 map, but let's be honest, and to Representative Coleman's point, they're saying that it doesn't protect CD2, but what about CD1? What about the voting rights district that we have?
I think y'all gonna be all right having a
Are
Democrat.
we though, if you're drawing a map that has diluted African-American population when it's talking about Webster Groves, that area in there, that's a heavily white district down there. That's a heavily whited in South County. So if you're swapping Democrats for Democrats and you're putting the Webster Groves, Rock Hill area back into CD2 and where they were originally, and I think CD1 only had a piece of it, I don't think that it makes CD2 less competitive or not. You just have to look at what the growth is. The growth is there. Like, it's gonna happen. It's inevitable. So just suck it up and take it on the chin.
Big picture, it's just bad that we're having this conversation 3 days before filing. I mean, we've
I
had a
agree with that.
responsibility to draw these maps for over a year, and starting with Donald Trump's presidency, who brought us a census late, to Governor Parsons' governorship, and the Republican legislature, who's been late on this forever. I mean, we have an overwhelming majority of folks who want a certain amount, 6-2 map.
That's
that
2 for
could
2
be
of
fair.
Mike Butler
And
winning
yet-
the point.
And yet we're still.
City
we're
Hall's
still
doing you
waiting.
good, buddy.
Oh, I'm
It
blessed.
is.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the House spent a bunch of money this week.
Yes.
How much money did y'all spend, and what did you spend it on?
We spent a total, if I'm not mistaken, about $2 billion or somewhere within that. We spent and had a large conversation about if state employees deserve a raise. In the supplemental budget that was passed out of the House, we argued that, $12 is not enough. And then the Senate came right back in as the saviors that they are and put in the $15 an hour.
I mean, it was interesting. I didn't hear anybody thanking Joe Biden, really. But I mean, this money, this is just federal money, right?
was just thinking that, yeah.
It's not like they went and generated this revenue from the
Yes.
state. This is just a gift from.
This is what used to be a blessing for the state. Like, we got money from the federal government that we've already paid into, and we haven't spent it in a long time. So the most important thing is that, once again, the Republican legislature is being irresponsible. Schools are at a brink right now. We've had hundreds of millions of dollars locked up in the legislature that they refuse to spend. Hundreds of millions of dollars that schools are waiting to have. I tend to think that maybe our Republican legislators hate public schools. And just Republicans in general. One of them suing public schools. Mm-hmm. The rest of them are keeping hundreds of millions of dollars from getting there in time. And lastly, then they're promoting charter schools to give them competition and take students away from those schools and take more money from the schools. I mean, at the end of the day, public schools is the biggest loser with us waiting on these funds. And now they're still worried whether they're ever going to get them if it doesn't make it all the way through.
Brittany, do you think maybe this special session they had where they tried to take murders away from Kim Gardner, do you think that left a bad taste in the governor's mouth, the legislature's mouth? I mean, in hindsight, the congressional map couldn't be handled worse. I mean, it's in about as bad a spot as you could have. Sure. So you could say a special session, maybe it wouldn't have been a better idea. I don't think it would have been worse. And maybe this money, with combined with the map, I mean, even your most conservative person says we should take the money and spend it, right? I mean, it's just illogical not to.
Yeah, I think the maps could have easily been handled in the fall. Maybe not easily, but at least we would have taken it away from
Couldn't be
holding
worse.
up everything else going on and let some good legislation get through this session. But with the supplemental budget, I think there's a lot of great places to spend it. I support the pay increase for state employees. I think that's essential. We see lack of people struggling to find employees all across the state right now and across the country. And if we can't retain state employees, we're going to find ourselves in a really
Look at
difficult
that Senator
situation.
Probst committee, Dan Hageman, Lincoln Up, Justin Brown, they've run businesses.
That's
I mean,
right.
whether you set the minimum wage at $50 or not is going to be immaterial because you have to pay them $15 to show up anyway.
That's right.
So you should allow them to, I mean, you're going to have to pay more for employees right now. That's what inflation does.
Yeah, and the cost that we're going to have when we're short-staffed is going to outweigh what goes on if you just had to throw a couple more bucks at folks.
Representative Coleman, you're running to become Senator Coleman from Jefferson County. The Iron Lady of Jefferson County, my assumption is, even you think if they're going to give you the money, you got to take it and spend it, right?
Absolutely. If I had been given the pen, though, what I would have done is not gone on spending in ways that are going to have increased costs every year. My worry is that we should have gone and maybe retired some of our debt. We could have shifted
You sound like
GR
Denny
fund.
Hoskins, those 40 FTEs.
Listen, I think that there's a point at which we're taking on additional costs that maybe we're going to be able to have money for, but maybe not. And I don't know that that's the play.
Let's talk about something that I think everybody has cost us all screen time. The trucker convoy in Canada.
Yeah.
There was going to be a trucker convoy in Jeff City, but it didn't really ever materialize. I think it was, instead of a rally, it was more like a small gathering, and I didn't see the trucks. But in Canada, they've shut the place down.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've really struggled with is When we have seen protests happen in the city of St. Louis, for example, and you have people walking into the streets and blocking the highways, or even with flooding, when you shut off 55, anytime you're doing something that impacts stopping convoys, stopping traffic, you start to get concerned because people can't get access to the hospital if they have an emergency. And I was really worried about when we saw that in the city. And I think I'm a little bit worried, about what's happening in Canada as well. Although, there's a point at which people reach their breaking point. And I think that what the representative might say is that people are taking to the streets in St. Louis to block things because they've had too much, and that's what you're seeing in Canada as well. And there's a point at which if your voice isn't being heard, people are gonna do whatever they can to try to say, hey, stop, this isn't okay.
You know regular people. One of the reasons I like knowing you. I do think folks are sort of done with COVID. I don't know that it's broken through your right-wingers that have hated from the beginning. It's broken through maybe your Main Street Republicans. I think it's into your moderate Democrats and even some of your maybe even more left-leaning Democrats. I do think most folks are ready for the government to move on. Where do you feel?
I think people are still knowing that COVID is out here.
Sure.
It's still an issue. We still have to act as if it is a very serious thing, which it is. Like, as much as we want to move on and we want to get back to normal, we have to know that hospitals are still overwhelmed with the new variants that are out here, that, businesses are still closing because they can't recover from what happened from the beginning 2 years ago. So we're still in a very nucleus space. Like, we're still right here in the middle of it all. We haven't came out of
So
the
if the truckers come out here, you want to tow them out and get them out of here?
No, I mean, look, I believe that you should have the right to do whatever you feel when you're feeling a way with protesting. When you want to go out and protest, I say do it, just as long as it's peaceful and it's respectful. And to the representative's point, that it's not an infraction on someone's safety.
We're out of time. The only thing I can do is wear a trucker hat in support. Mike Butler, who won the week?
I think Representative Emmanuel Cleaver has won the week so far. Reverend Emmanuel Cleaver.
As long as he has a district on that, it's hard to argue with. That's good today. He's killing it. Who won the week?
I believe Peter Meritor won the week. In Budget Committee, we
he
had the
loved that too. He had such a good
conversation about COVID, and I think it goes right into it. You have our Attorney General suing school districts for mask mandates, but can they require shoes?
I saw that
That's a
picture
very
of him
simple
and
question.
Schmidt together. You know he loved that.
Yes.
Who won the week?
So I think that, another week without a Trump endorsement, that Eric Greitens won the week. Every day that he gets pushed off, he's still relevant in this race.
There you go.
I'm going to say Clena Bruce locked down the Blake Hurst endorsement, probably one of the most respected men in
That is a big one.
Republican politics in Missouri and agriculture politics, and so I'm going to say she won the week.
That is a big deal. Yeah, congratulations to her. I'm going to say Senator Dan Hagan, the winner of the Geyer Award. Talk about a person who is leaving office with the accolades they deserve. I think Senator Hagan is that. Hope you'll join us next week. Speaking of Blake Hurst, from the Farm Bureau Legislative Conference in Jeff City on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics, sponsored by the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, Spire, and Sterling Bank.
Guys, thank you so much for watching the show. I want to tell you about a new thing we're offering. It's the Missouri Times Podcast Network. You'll get this show every week. If you want to listen to it in your car, you don't have time to watch it. You'll get our Show in Missouri podcast, History of Missouri, one county at a time. You'll also get our midweek update. Once a week, I throw up the Facebook Live. We talk politics, usually eat a lunch and discuss politics. You'll get to hear all those things come right to your phone. Subscribe to us on iTunes or Android. Missouri Times Podcast Network. Please join us and subscribe.